Have you ever had that feeling, that deep, profound sense of being out of place, like your internal operating system just isn't compatible with Earth?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that feeling is really at the heart of this concept of the starseed. This idea of an incarnated consciousness that feels its origin is, well, distinctly non-terrestrial.
It's an extraordinary claim, for sure.
And today we are taking a deep dive into two very specific but also kind of contradictory streams of source material in this.
That's right. Our mission today is sort of split. On one side, we have these really detailed insights from hypnotic investigations. They map out the characteristics, the origins, all the specialized capacities of different starseed types.
Like the Pleiadians, Sirians, Arcturians,
Yeah.
all of that, the lore, basically.
Exactly, the lore. And then on the other side, we have to look at this really crucial meta-analysis of the process itself.
A kind of methodological critique.
A very cold, hard one. It outlines the extreme challenges, the high risk, and frankly, the rate of contamination you get when gathering any information through investigative hypnosis.
So our goal isn't just to get informed about, the traits of these cosmic travelers. It's to apply some rigorous critical thinking to understand how reliable any of this esoteric data truly is.
We want to find the surprising facts, but also keep a really clear, structured path through what is a very complex topic.
Okay, so let's start with the foundational claim, the one confirmed within these hypnotic investigations.
Right. So the sources state very clearly that consciousnesses with prior non-terrestrial origins, they do exist, and they are incarnated on Earth.
Okay, but let's get the technical terms straight right away. When we say starseed, we're really talking about the subliminal part, right? The higher self.
Precisely. The subliminal part is that consciousness that exists outside the physical body. It's the non-incarnated essence, the higher self that gets accessed in deep hypnosis. And the investigators found a confirmed starting point. These essences are here.
Hold on. Confirmed starting point. That's a really strong phrase. Does the investigation explain the methodology there? How is that a fact and not just, a shared belief among the subjects?
Well, the confirmation within this specific body of research, it relies on consistency. Consistency across thousands of subjects and operators, which we'll get into the reliability part later.
Sure.
But the core insight here is the condition that leads to their presence. It's defined as a deliberate, conscious choice.
A choice, so it's not an accident, not a punishment?
Not at all. It's a choice by the subliminal part, and it serves two main purposes.
And what are those? Why choose to come to a place that's clearly so difficult to adapt to?
The first reason is internal. It's for experiential growth. I mean, Earth offers duality. You get the ups and downs, the dark and the light. For a higher self, that is an incredibly accelerated and enriching environment.
And the second purpose?
The second is more external. They come to bring information, and often that's just through their mere presence.
Just by being here?
Yeah, just by existing and radiating a certain high-frequency energy or warmth or love, they passively contribute to the energetic field of the planet.
That makes their energetic makeup pretty important then. What distinguishes a starseed on that level?
They have this ethereal DNA that it has something extra or added compared to souls who've had mostly terrestrial lives.
Extra, what does that mean?
Well, the source describes this ethereal blueprint, when it's free of interference, as looking pure, highly brilliant, and it has these rainbow nuances at the construction level.
So think less like a chemical structure and more like a resonant frequency, a kind of complex data stream.
That's a great way to put it. And this purity, it's not just some spiritual fluff. It has a real functional impact on the physical body.
How so?
It transfers to the physical body as enhanced vital energy and vitality. And the sources really emphasize it's not about looking young, it's about a quality of life force.
Okay, I see.
And beyond that, abilities we might call extrasensory, like telepathy or healing. For them, these are just natural. They express them effortlessly. They can consciously play with energy without needing special training, just because their base architecture supports it.
This is where memory becomes so critical. If they have this high-frequency essence, how do they actually access memories of where they came from? It can't be like remembering a plane ticket.
No, absolutely not. The memories are overwhelmingly kinesthetic.
So feeling-based.
Exactly. They don't usually recall names of planets or specific events. Instead, they experience deep feelings, profound states of consciousness, or even physical sensations that remind them of their home frequency.
And there are triggers for that.
Yeah, visual triggers could be certain color combinations you don't really see on Earth, or specific sound frequencies that just resonate really deeply with them.
So the purpose isn't historical accuracy. It's not about logging the past.
Not at all. The whole point of awakening this memory is functional. It's to remind the consciousness of its own essence and its inherent value. It's like a spiritual anchor. It grounds them in their mission, especially when Earth's duality starts to feel heavy.
Which leads us directly to what might be the most critical warning in the entire investigation. The concept trap.
This is huge.
The investigation suggests that while the essence, the subliminal part, might be genuinely non-terrestrial, the term starseed itself, that's a concept that's being actively manipulated.
A major, major finding. The source material says this manipulation is often done by certain specialized and often humanoid entities. They spread this concept through what they call mass programs.
And what's the goal of these programs?
To inflate the ego. To build up a sense of self-importance in the person who's incarnated.
So an entity basically exploits that human desire for unique identity, offers them the shiny label starseed, and attaches it to a feeling of superiority, like being a chosen one.
Precisely. And the outcome is completely counterproductive to their mission. Instead of just humbly radiating their light, the person gets focused on their self-importance, on their status.
They start thinking they're better than regular humans.
Exactly, which creates an egoic barrier. It creates separation instead of connection. It ironically stops them from doing the very thing they came here to do.
But if we can step back from that manipulated concept for a second, what's the universal truth here about consciousness and travel?
The core insight, and it's one that can get lost in all the jargon, is that fundamentally all subliminal parts are travelers. They're all extraterrestrial. They aren't native to the physical body.
So the only thing that makes a starseed different is their specific high-frequency traits and, I guess, their recent non-terrestrial experience.
That's the key. They haven't been cycling through Earth's dualistic system over and over again.
And that lack of recent experience, that's what leads to the adaptation problem.
Exactly. They perceive Earth's operating system, its laws, its rigid structures, its emotional density as unnatural, foreign, heavy. And the result is that chronic, often debilitating feeling of being not at home.
So if that struggle to adapt is kind of universal for them, let's zoom in. How does their origin, say, being Pleiadian versus Arcturian, change how they feel out of place? Let's unpack the specific types.
Okay, we can start with the Pleiadians. Their key traits are a high capacity for presence, intense mental focus, and intelligence. But the sources describe their core energy as detached and glacially non-involved.
Glacially non-involved. That sounds cold. How does that play out in their behavior?
It's not malice. It's more of an intellectual distance. They observe without judgment or emotional investment. They have what's called an empathetic vibration, which means that they can read information from other people's emotional field.
But they don't necessarily feel compelled to, interfere and comfort them?
Exactly. They process the data intellectually. This detachment also supports their well-known advanced healing abilities. They're basically transferring high-frequency information or energy through touch. It's a data transfer, not an emotional connection.
And the numbers mentioned are pretty significant. The sources estimate a huge range from like 2% up to 20% of the population having some Pleiadian DNA or interference.
Yeah, it's a wide range. Then you have the Sirians. They're also described as glacial, but interestingly perceived as slightly warmer than Pleiadians.
Warmer, okay.
And they are defined by a strong loyalty and attachment to their group or their base. They often manifest as peacekeepers or world guardians. They have this cold, non-human stillness that makes them natural protectors of structure.
But the investigation found a critical deficiency in their essence, right?
Yes. A crucial missing ingredient. They lack the pure foundational love element that's present in a pure human essence. It's a functional consequence of their group consciousness. In their structure, they cede individual power, and that includes individual emotional vulnerability and care to the collective. The group handles that emotional load.
So the incarnated Sirian doesn't need to develop that specific frequency of individual human compassion.
They just don't. Their system is different. Now, the Arcturians, they are all about justice, righteousness, and correction. Their energy is firm and dignified. They're seen as natural leaders with a specific capacity for defense and protecting universal equilibrium. They're the cosmic regulators.
And the Andromedans sound like they have a very technical focus.
They do. Highly connected to technology, but the sources are specific. It's a non-aggressive, high-frequency technology, not for weapons, but for exploration and creation.
So they use it as an extension of their own consciousness.
Yes, exactly. They blend their innate hyperperceptions, like viewing things at a distance, with their advanced apparatus seamlessly. Then you have the Blu-ray starseeds. They're described as totally different. Highly, highly sensitive. Their receptors are wide open to surrounding energy fields, so they get overwhelmed by Earth's noise easily. Their energy is described as static or running in straight lines, like clean mountain water. They are glacial, but not cold.
And there's a missing color in their energy signature.
That's right. They're cited as missing the color red. In this context, red represents creative, expansive, reproductive energy, the energy for deep emotional investment.
So without red, they are detached observers?
Detached and present. They are capable of deep observation, but they aren't necessarily preoccupied with caring or actively creating new realities within Earth's density.
And to wrap up the mapping, what about Lemurians and Atlanteans?
They're often called the first starseeds to have manifested in this Earth cycle, but the bigger truth remains. They're all travelers. No one belongs to any single physical location.
Okay, one quick clarifying question. Are reptilians considered starseeds in this classification?
No. The investigation draws a very strong line there. Reptilians are described as constructed, created, or developed. They're not derived from that pure coded starseed essence with the rainbow nuances.
But they could evolve into that form.
The possibility exists far in the future, but right now they're outside this definition.
Okay. We have just spent a lot of time detailing some truly extraordinary claims. Multicolored DNA, missing love elements, hypertechnology. Now we have to shift gears completely and talk about the rigor. How reliable is any of this?
This is the crucial counterpoint. We have to face the high risk of contamination in investigative hypnosis. The sources are blunt. They say the percentage of information distortion is extremely high.
Extremely high. But why? Where does the information get corrupted?
It happens at multiple points. First, the information has to travel across these immense dimensional boundaries and densities just to reach the subject. Then, when it arrives, it's filtered through the subject's mind.
A mind loaded with their own education, culture, personal beliefs, all their terrestrial biases.
Exactly. It's impossible to get a pure feed.
It sounds like trying to translate a complex alien language through a series of faulty radio relays.
That's a perfect analogy. The sources use two even stronger ones. One is, imagine trying to speak underwater using vocal cords designed for air.
The sound would be completely distorted.
The meaning is just lost in the medium. And the second analogy hits on that cultural filtering. Imagine two people from different cultures trying to communicate. A gesture for yes in one culture might mean no, or be deeply offensive in the other. The intent of the source and the interpretation by the subject just become unreliable.
So the key takeaway here, for anyone listening who might be tempted to take these classifications as, gospel,
is that the information from a single session is not instruction. It's not factual data to be taken as absolute truth.
It's just a vehicle.
It's merely a vehicle. The data, no matter how contaminated, helps the hypnotist and the client identify the client's specific underlying problem, like an interference or a block. It serves the client's immediate need, not a global quest for universal facts.
Given that staggering failure rate, what do the sources say is the only reliable path to establishing any kind of universal truth in this field?
It's intense. It requires extensive, difficult, team-based work that spans many, many years. It demands thousands of sessions.
Thousands.
Thousands, with different subjects, different cultural backgrounds, and different operators, all focused on the exact same piece of information.
And what are they looking for across all those sessions?
Only the common thread. Only the data that is equal, identical, and consistently reported across the vast majority of those thousands of sessions can be considered reliable.
And everything else is just noise.
Everything else is discarded. And this leads us to that truly shocking statistic. Reliable information is estimated to be maybe 2 to 3% of the total gathered.
2 to 3%, yeah.
The other 97 to 98% is considered junk information. The reliable bits are things like consistent descriptions of certain entities, grays, mantis insectoids, or the mapping of specific underground ethereal structures. Data points that somehow survived the filter of thousands of minds.
That is a shocking failure rate for any kind of investigative work. And we haven't even touched on the risk of deliberate manipulation.
That's the final hurdle. The subliminal parts of non-involved individuals, meaning an entity you want to ask about, but who isn't interfering with your subject, they might not grant authorization to be accessed.
And if you try anyway.
If you attempt an unauthorized inquiry, clever entities can exploit that. They can pose as the subject you requested and feed you deliberately distorted or fabricated information.
So asking for information about, say, a Pleiadian council might just get you an imposter feeding you a programmed concept.
Absolutely. The only clear exception is if an entity is already actively interfering with the subject under hypnosis. Because they're already engaged, a communication channel is open by definition, and the investigation can proceed.
Okay, let's try to bring these two massive conflicting pieces together. We dove deep into these incredible claims about starseeds, their specific DNA, their defined capacities, Arcturian justice, Andromedan tech. But then we surfaced and had to confront this overwhelming criteria for validating anything, learning that we're mostly dealing with highly contaminated data.
And if we connect this back to that personal quest for identity, it's interesting. The investigation highlighted how Sirians operate under a group consciousness that strips them of that individual human ingredient of love. The concept trap we talked about works in a similar way. It funnels your unique identity into a restrictive, ego-inflating category.
Right.
So this raises a really important question for you, the listener. When you're seeking connection or identity with these non-terrestrial origins, how much of your own profound, unique individual power and your humanity might you be unconsciously giving away to an external group concept or to some entity's programmed label, instead of just embracing the expansive power found in the purity of your own individual essence?
A profound challenge to consider as you navigate this information. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Go explore further.